So good evening, everyone. Everyone here in Zendo and everyone online, good to see you on this spring evening as the warm weather is coming. I stood in the sun outside before I came in for a minute and just basked in that beautiful warmth. So it's good to be with you here tonight, and also welcome to anyone who's newer to the Sangha for the first time. It's really good to have you with us. My name is Jinno, and I'm glad to give the talk tonight. I haven't given a talk for a while, and I think there's a couple things in there. One is that, I feel it's important to say we're so lucky to have so many people, teachers and students, who can give talks now, that we can really benefit from all of these different voices and different ways of sharing the Dharma. And it kind of takes the pressure off, having one person having to give all the talks. That's not how it used to be, but with the flourishing of our Sangha, that's where we are now. And I think when you want to step back, when the circumstances in your life are such that you need to step back, you can, and when you need to step forward, you can. And that's a real gift that we have in our Sangha. And also, it's just been a busy year for me. Work's been very busy. I've had to take care of some family members, which has required time and energy, and preparing for ordination for a large part of this year, was a lot of time and energy. And also, I think it was very inward, in a sense, a lot of introspection and really feeling into the practice and to what this means to me and to what this is in my life and what I can offer, how I can be me. So it's a very kind of inward sort of year, and I didn't really feel like I needed to say much outwardly. But then I got an email asking me to give a talk. So I said yes. And I think, when our life calls us, we have to speak. And that could look like a lot of different things. It could look like giving a talk. It could look like signing a petition. It could look like giving up our seat on the subway to someone who looks like they maybe need it more than we do. There's many different ways that we can speak and respond to what our life is asking of us. When the period of zazen ends and we have to stand up, we're called to speak. When we take a step in kinhin, we're called to speak. When we go out the door of the Zendo and back onto the street, we're called to speak. So I haven't felt a kind of desire to talk, but a lot has happened this year, so certainly there's a lot that I could say about my just personal experience. And of course, the great turmoil that we are experiencing in our country and around the world. There's much that I can say about that. And I think that talk or no talk, we are all speaking about that every day. When we wake up and we hear about what's happening and we feel it in our hearts, in our bodies, and then we go and move in the world in all the different ways that we each do in our own way. I think we are speaking about that. So then the question that, okay, I'll give the talk, and so what wants to come up? There's a lot there, but what really wants to come forward? That was the question that I was sitting with. And of course, there's a case, many cases, but one case that I really connected with that explores this, and I wanted to share a little bit about it tonight. And that is Book of Serenity, Case 7, Yao Shan ascends the seat. And it goes like this. Yao Shan hadn't ascended the seat to give a talk for a long time. The temple superintendent said to him, "Everybody's been wanting instruction for a long time. Please, teacher, expound the Dharma for the congregation." So Yao Shan had him ring the bell, and when the Sangha had gathered, he ascended the seat. After a while, he got right back down and went to his room. So the superintendent followed after him and was like, "A while ago, you agreed to give a talk to expound the teaching for the Sangha. Why didn't you utter a single word?" So Yao Shan said, "For scriptures, there are teachers of scriptures. For the treatises, there are teachers of treatises. How can you question this old one?" So I like this one. Contrary to many of our koans, nothing specific is asked and nothing specific is said. And nevertheless, it's all about asking and responding. So as I was digging into this, amongst the other activities of my life, when I have some downtime, I like to read. And I really like Russian literature, and Tolstoy in particular. I really like Tolstoy, but I've never read War and Peace. So I thought, I think I'll give it a try. I'm about halfway through. And it's been about a year, probably. And I really love Tolstoy. His writing to me is very Zen, in a way. Not Zen like Dogen, not poetic and abstract, but it's most of the time, he's really talking about the basic experiences of life in such a clear and powerful way. What goes on in relationships between people, family members, friends, deep conversations, confusion and pain, joy and ecstasy, love, hatred, war and peace. And I find that he writes in such a clear and in such an immediate way that we really feel what is happening. For 1,200 pages, we feel it on every line. Everything is life and death in his writing, because everything is life and death. So I really love his writing, and in that way it feels Zen to me. Because I think that's what the practice in koan study is really trying to get us to do, is to really experience the content of our life directly, to really, really experience what is there. So what I've really been thinking about when I was sitting with this koan and thinking about the reading is translation. So I read it in English translation, and we are working with the koans and so much of our practice in translation. Literature, it's actually literature in translation, but also ideological and cultural and historical translation, which spans 2,500 years. And the Book of Serenity itself is about 800 years old. And I think this translation is a key element of practice in general and koan study specifically. And translation is a tricky business. It's really a science and an art. And so the translator of my edition wrote this: "Translation is not the transfer of a detachable meaning from one language to another, for the simple reason that in literature, there is no meaning detachable from the words that express it. Translation is a dialogue between two languages. It occurs in a space between two languages, and most often between two historical moments. Then he goes on to say, to move from that fertile ground of what lies in between towards either extreme, that is, towards interlinear literalness or total accommodation to the new language, is to lose the possibilities that exist only in the space between two times and two languages. So I think for our purposes, these two extremes are maybe, if we're sort of mimicking the outer forms or just copying what the teachings say, but not really grasping what is the deeper meaning there in our lives. What does that really mean for us? Maybe that's the literalness. And the accommodation, if we become so flexible in our translation that we lose the sense of what the teaching is really trying to tell us. It's no longer faithful to the original. So those two extremes. So what does this really mean for our work with koans and the Dharma? I think we're literally, the koans are literally translated for most of us. And it's also a language in itself with references and images and literary devices that we can learn to understand. And the other language there is the language of our own personal interior experience, which is a much murkier language, but which is a language, and in a sense, I think is also codified by Buddhist and Zen practice. And as we work more with the koans and the Dharma, and we learn both languages better, it becomes easier to translate between them and to seek what is in the shared space in between. So to go back to this specific koan, it starts with Yao Shan had not spoken for a long time. And I think already before anything has happened, there's something very important there. There is a space, an opening, a void. So why has Yao Shan not spoken for a long time? And what are we left with when he's not giving a talk? So the administrator urges Yao Shan to give a talk on to benefit the Sangha. And about this point, in his translation, Gary Shishin Wick says, all words aside, each of you must take care of this great matter by yourself. Each of us must take care of this great matter. Yao Shan has not spoken for a long time. And then the request to give a talk. So where is that in our lives? Where is this opening that Yao Shan leaves for us? For me to start working with this koan, I wanted to enter that space, which I think it's not a comfortable space. It's not a space of contentment. It's a space of discontent. So has anyone here experienced a state of discontent recently? A state of turbulence? Of turmoil? I certainly have. And I think it's out of this place that we, as the temple administrator, make this request of the Dharma to speak to us and to enliven us, to awaken us. So I experience that all the time when I'm struggling with something. Asking my practice, asking the Dharma to help me to let go of that thing, help me to reground, to come back to here and out of up here. So this is the first part, and Yashan acquiesces. And he has the administrator ring the bell and to call everyone together. I think when we're listening for Yashan's talk, everything in our lives can be this bell to call us together. When we get wrapped up in something at work, or with our family, or at the Zendo, and then something hits us, and we take a step back, and we pull ourselves together. So is this koan talking about a sangha gathering together? Or is it talking about gathering all of the parts of ourselves together? Are we hearing the bell being struck and responding to that call? Or are we ringing the bell ourselves, calling to attention our hearts and our minds? So then Yashan gets up on the platform and he sits there for a while. So what do we see and hear in that space? Our lives are teeming, swirling around us all the time. And he uses this platform to open up a space. For what? For us, for our lives, which come rushing in like a tidal wave, overtaking everything. Everything is covered, everything is saturated, everything is leveled when our lives rush into us in this moment. So he gets back down and goes back to his room. And I think it's right there, it's right in front of us. But maybe we don't see it. When I was thinking about this, it reminded me of a friend of mine was reading a book about phones and telephone communication, and he was telling me about how with the sonic processing, that's why we can experience these things like a plane is taking off over your head, but the person on the other end doesn't hear anything. Or, there's a small noise in your space that you don't even hear, but it's amplified on the other end of the line for the other person. So, just because our life shows itself to us clearly, doesn't mean that we will necessarily feel that. We might be just waiting for Yashan to say something along the lines of what we're expecting, and not hear what is really said. We're waiting for something to catapult us out of that tumultuousness. We want to get out of that. And we miss what's happening right inside the tumult. Our life is happening right inside of there. We're waiting for an experience in zazen, or in kinhin, or maybe service, or something from a Dharma talk. And we miss the totality of our lives expressing itself right now. So then we become the superintendent again, and we follow after Yashan, like, You said you were going to say something, but why didn't you say anything? But here again, the languages of the koans speak. And so Thomas Cleary translates it as, why didn't you utter a single word? And this is one of those phrases that are throughout the koans that is a little breadcrumb for us to follow. Part of that language. There's something here. Why didn't you utter a single word? So regarding that line, Wansong, the compiler of the Book of Serenity, adds the saying, if the ocean were filled, the 100 rivers would have to flow backward. If the ocean were filled, the 100 rivers would have to flow backward. How might we translate that saying? So for me, I might try something like, if I had already gotten it, I wouldn't be able to learn from Yao Shan's talk. That's how I might translate it. And Yao Shan responds to the administrator's questions. For scriptures, there are teachers of scriptures. For the treatises, there are teachers of treatises. How can you question this old monk? So what kind of teacher are you? Are you a teacher of scriptures? Of treatises? Are you a teacher of meetings and emails? Of melodies or letters, images or equations, hospital rooms, grocery shopping, cooking a meal, raising a family, caring for a loved one or a friend? What kind of teacher are you? So about that, Shui Do says, what a pity that old fellow Yao Shan bit the dust on even ground. No one in the world can help him up. And Wansong adds the saying, I say, you too should lend a hand. So just sitting with this, I feel just so moved by these, the koans and the teachings, which are so nuanced. They express all of these fine points, similar but a little different in all of these nuanced ways. All the different ways that they're reflected in our lives and in the circumstances that we encounter. Can we see it here? Can we see it there? Or what about there? What about in that moment? In that conversation? So where do we find Yao Shan in our lives? He is here offering us the teaching. Even when he hasn't spoken for a while. Or when it seems like he's just sitting there silently, not doing anything. He is speaking to us, and we just have to listen. So I'll end with a verse. What to say, or not say? The world needs your voice, like a tidal wave sweeping through. Yao Shan is gone, bit the dust and disappeared. Now it's your turn. Only you can lend a hand.